There are many reasons that this trajectory that we've been on for as long as we have has been coming. It's a long time coming, but it really, if you want to go to the origin of where it began post-World War II, and it began during a period of great, what you would call middle-class success in this country for about 2 decades. But when it got to the point where it became clear as to how that needed to be maintained, and we had a president that decided he wasn't going along with it, and they decided they had to kill him as a result and set an example in such a dramatic way to say, well, this is what effectively is coming for anybody else who attempts to get out of the way of what we're going to do, which is global domination, which is so ironic because this was Hitler's plan all along with the Third Reich. And we ultimately, as a means of defeating the Nazis of World War II, decided to take his idea and basically make it our own in a different context. But it's still the same thing if you really think about it. It was American global domination in the second half of the 20th century. Now, you fast forward into what accelerated it to the point of no return. You saw it begin, believe it or not, the things that happened under Reagan, that was just the appetizer. But it started there, where the reduction in the top marginal tax rate went from 72% down to 28%. So there was no balance in terms of where the rich were paying their fair share. You eliminated the fairness doctrine in 1987. That created the Rush Limbaughs of the world and created the alternate radio media, if you will, that grew in the heartland and the South and the upper Midwest and the Great Plains regions of the country, where people were not glued to celebrity TV and things like that. And then you usher in Desert Storm, the starting of what ultimately came, however tepidly, in George Bush's years. But it really came to a head in the Clinton years. You had NAFTA. You had normal trade relations with China.
You couldn't stop yourself, could you?
I had the crime bill. I had the Telecom Act. And of course, the creme a la creme. I had the repeal of Glass-Steagall. And that all happened under his watch. And all those domestic policies, which changed the country for the worse. Then you change the foreign policies under Bush, which was really Cheney and Rumsfeld, but it is what it is, that happened under his watch and that they put into action. That set everything in motion that led us to 2016 and an opportunity of a lifetime to change this narrative when with a small state senator who came along out of nowhere and brought the topics of conversation to the table that needed to be discussed, that we were going to change this country for the better, and we had an opportunity of a lifetime to do it. And unfortunately, there were many moving parts that led us to not getting to that point. The powers that be decided that there was this opportunity for the working class to rise again, and they decided that we must stop it by any means necessary, which they did, and that includes the person that our good friend is running for Congress against right now. You know, Debbie Wasserman Schultz may be one of many within the cog of the equation of the things that go on Capitol Hill, but she is particularly egregious in everything that is going on right now. After all these years, she's still in the thick of it. She is still out there doing what she's doing and standing side by side with Bibi Netanyahu, which we'll address later. He's been charged as a war criminal. Not a surprise, he is one. But she's going to stand right there with him. And the only thing that's standing in the way, in my opinion, of some semblance of a change that we desperately need right now is going to come from our friend who is running for Congress. And you are here to see. We're going to air it for the first time on our channel. It's been released on social media a little while ago. This is Jen's first official campaign ad. So I hope you guys enjoy it if you haven't seen it yet. I think it was extremely well done. And I think it's really to the heart of the matter of what's going on right now.
This is me at 16 years old in Israel on a high school trip holding an assault rifle. And this is the definition of indoctrination. I grew up in North Miami Beach. I grew up in a very insulated, very Jewish community. We were taught that Palestine and Palestinians, that's not a real thing, that was made up by Arabs. Everybody over there that wasn't Jewish was just Arabs. But the message was always clear that Jews were not safe and that the Arabs wanted to hurt us. My relatives, my great-grandmother, my grandmother were raised with this fear mentality that without the state of Israel, Jews around the world will not be safe. True history was kept from us. We were propagandized. But as I grew older, I began to see a different reality unfolding. I witnessed the rise of the Israeli lobby, exerting its influence on our politics and policies. I learned about the injustices happening thousands of miles away in the name of Jewish people. And I can't stay silent in the face of such injustice. The right to return denied to so many Palestinians. The war fueled by the Israeli government and sanctioned by our own country, condemned by the UN and the International Court of Justice as genocide. We cannot turn a blind eye to this injustice any longer. To me, atonement is really taking accountability for your participation in something that you now realize was not correct in some way and wronged people in some way. I participated in an ethnic cleansing state. I do not feel powerless. I feel hopeful. It is time for us to use our voices, to stand in solidarity with the oppressed, to demand accountability from our leaders. As a candidate, as a mother, as an ally, I pledge to fight for justice and equity for everyone, here at home and abroad. For there can be no peace without true justice. I'm Jen Perelman. I'm running for Congress, Florida's 25th district.
That's how you do an ad. That's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I mean that was powerful. I mean, as I'm sure some I haven't been checking just yet, but I'm sure some people maybe angrily in the chat now. No, I have to take 501c3 restrictions very seriously, so I'll be careful about what I say about the ad. But like, it's a very powerful one. Like, I can't remember seeing something like that ever. Like for my lifetime. And so again, that goes to the point we were saying that this is a terrifying moment, but something's changing here where, even saying that for any ad or even saying it in public, would kind of get you really ridiculed. It still does. But I mean, like, again, it's just another sign that, like the time of monsters does not mean that we have to all just lie down in fear. Right. I mean, there's a great way to look at this historical juncture like this, where you have like issues like Israel, the Israel lobby, like being addressed so forthrightly and in fact, like at the forefront of our political discourse. Like that is such a sign of a changing time. But it's a very terrifying time. And I remember watching the great Quaker activist George Lakey give a talk here in Baltimore a couple months ago. And he had a great way of talking about this because he's a lifelong community organizer. He's been through some stuff, right? But he says that, like, in moments like these, it's easy to get scared where it feels like, everything's so intense and the forces of evil are really mounting. Again, the things that Jen's like, speaking to in that ad, the things that you guys talk about on this show and the things that we try to cover in the real news. Like, yeah, there's real shit going on right now that we need to tackle head on. And that looks different for so many of us. But there's something we can all do to get involved. But what George Lakey would say is that, yeah, like rather than be terrified by the extremes that we're all seeing and cowering in fear from them, think of it like a furnace, right? And that it's when the metal is at its hottest that you can bend it, right? So what this means, what all this noise, what all this death, what all this terror, what all this fear, what all this, like rising intense situational crap that we got to confront like means is that we've got a moment to fight for our future. We've got a chance to try to fight for a different outcome than the one we know we're going to get if we do nothing. And like, that's a terrifying and exhilarating place to be. And so like the fact that, yeah, Jen's out there running, there are candidates out there, there are folks, students out there, like, occupying their campuses and getting brutally repressed, getting doxxed, having their lives and their futures put at risk to take a stand. I mean, that action is happening all over the place. And the question for all of us is, what role do we want to play in it? Like, what happens next depends on what we all do now. And as I say all the time in the Real News, no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And so whatever it is, go do something.